are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 187 of the College Loop Podcast. I am Dylan Larck, able to take on Twitter, and I am here to talk to y'all today about yesterday's A-Day spring game, which I would assume about 40,000 people were in attendance. I know people were kind of upset about what it looked like from the TV, but it was 40,000 people that were around there. But of course, I was there in attendance alongside a lot of people that y'all are aware of. Yesterday was a game. Auburn wins. Auburn beats Auburn 28-27 behind the likes of one Towns Magoo, who went 7 for 7 from the field. Almost just basketball still very prevalent in my brain. I also want to shout out the Auburn clothing director. I don't know who was in charge of the baseball pop-up shop, but a huge shout out to whoever did that, because this hat is probably my favorite hat that I have right now. I will be getting a jersey as soon as it happens, as soon as they are back stocked up on the Team Shop website. But just to get right into A-Day, and of course, thank you all for tuning in. So if you have any thoughts about A-Day, light them up, and we'll talk about it. Believe me, we're going to be a very A-Day heavy show today because baseball, got some opinions about baseball and softball, of course, going on as well. But starting off with A-Day, my first winner of A-Day is, of course, going to be the wide receiver room. Yesterday, as it stands, looking at the box score, so you had 4 catches for 92 yards, and the only touchdown of the day coming from true freshman, 5-star Cam Coleman, who had 4 catches for 92 yards. Behind him, you had Robert Lewis with 5 catches for 73 yards. You had Camden Brown, 3 catches for 45 yards. And Sam Jackson, 5th, got in for a little bit, who had 2 catches for 27 yards. Looking at, you didn't get, you had a catch from Jay Fair, too, which is like your only returning starter. Didn't really get a lot of catches. Coy Moore wasn't available for this game. He was on the sideline. I'm trying to remember, there was one other wide receiver who was on the sideline as well. But you really got a skeleton crew after those 4. But Cam Coleman is, of course, going to be your storyline. He was the best player on the field yesterday. He was the lone touchdown grab, which he didn't catch over anybody. He caught it through, I believe, was may have been Jalen Crawford. I'd have to go back and look through. But an absolutely awesome grab. He also had another earlier grab where it was just awesome. It was an overthrown ball. He reached out, all 6 foot, 3 of them. Reached up in the air and was able to catch it while falling down for like a 50-ish yard gain. He just clearly showed that he is everything marketed and more. And I can't wait to see what he looks like during the season. Of course, Robert Lewis offered some very solid catches as well. Seeing that he's able to transition from the Sun Belt level to SC level is yet to be determined, because of course A-Day is A-Day. So I don't want to overreact too much because it's hard. You can't really overreact for A-Day. It's something that you can't let A-Day take over your brain like that much. But Cam Coleman is kind of hard not to. Then you have Camden Brown, who had 3 catches for 45 yards, and I cannot lie, I foresaw this happening. Camden Brown is a wide receiver that I have always been very high on. I know he had his ups and downs last year, had a lot of downs, but the spring, I've heard nothing bad about Camden Brown. And then he came out there in A-Day. He looked great. He had a lot of great catches and made a lot of great runs after the catch. I think Camden Brown is a guy who, if he plays like he is supposed to play, because he was very good in the back half of his freshman year when we finally got to see him play. Camden Brown came out his sophomore year, which was last year, and didn't perform well. Had a lot of drops, and that was like a big issue that he had. And I've seen an improvement out of him from the spring practices, and heard a lot about how much he's laser focused on this year. I am so excited to watch how he performs this year. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be in that rotation right alongside the likes of Perry Thompson or Malcolm Simmons, who have yet to get on campus yet. And then, of course, lastly, Sam Jackson, the 5th, who he only had 2 catches, but they were very efficient at 2 catches. He had one. It was a swing pass, I think, for like 5 yards. He had another one that went for the rest. He was wearing a yellow jersey. He's the guy wearing the yellow jersey, if you were there. Unless you're watching, I assume if you watched on TV, you heard. But he was the guy wearing the yellow jersey. I assume that was a non-contact jersey. I was proven of that very quickly. That's not what a yellow jersey is. because as soon as I told my girlfriend that, he took a swing pass and got lit up as soon as he caught the ball. But yeah, the wide receiver room looked great. And of course, that leads off with Cam Coleman. My first loser of A-Day. Anyone who is rooting against Peyton Thorne as the quarterback won, because this quarterback depth is not good at all. Outside of Peyton Thorne, there is not a true SEC, I don't want to say SEC caliber quarterback, but there is not someone that I would trust behind center this year outside of Peyton Thorne. Looking at the quarterback numbers, Peyton Thorne had the only touchdown of the day, of course. Threw 9 of 13 for 133 yards. Also had 4 carries for 20 yards, but I'm not going to talk about rushing yards. So 9 of 13 for 133 yards. Hank Brown was second with 5 of 12 for 102 yards. Of course, half of that coming from that one beautiful grab by Cam Coleman. Holden Garner, 7 for 10 for 46 yards, and then Walker White, 5 of 13 for 83 yards. Very up and down a day for the quarterbacks. I'll get to what probably led into that a little bit later on. But with Holden Garner coming in 4th in the passing yards, it would not surprise me if we were to hear of him walking during the next cycle of the transfer portal, because Holden Garner. I think he's great in practice, but when you see him in a game, he's just not there. And of course, there were a lot of reps where he had the starting wide receivers. I just don't think that he is quite ready for the game yet. And I don't know when that would happen. But Hank Brown made a lot of had a great first half, but I think in the second half he kind of fell off a little bit. And then Walker White had his moments where he had made some good throws, but of course he looked like a true freshman out there. But also it's kind of hard to look better than you are look as good as you are whenever you are playing with the walk-ons and the third, fourth string offense on the field. But yeah, Peyton Thorne, I think he played a great game. He had the number one offense. He looked good. He looked poised. He had 4 incompletions, and 9 of 13 is a great percentage. I think he made a lot of great throws. He threw the ball where the ball needed to go. I can't remember if it was him or not. There was one play I know of where Cam Coleman would have gotten a touchdown a lot sooner. Had the quarterback look up, and I think that might have been Peyton Thorne, which I think he ended up making another decision on the play, just trying to get the ball out before he got sacked. But I'm sorry to everybody who's against Peyton Thorne. Because Peyton Thorne is going to be your starting quarterback next year. And if you want to go the whole season just rooting against the Auburn quarterback, that's fine. There's a team on the other side of the state that'll join you in doing that. It is time for Auburn fans to kind of accept the fact that Peyton Thorne is going to be your quarterback in 2024. Or this season. I guess it is 2024, so I can stop saying that. This year, Peyton Thorne is your starting quarterback. No matter what you have to say about it, no matter what you think about it, it's Peyton Thorne. He has weapons this year. Can't argue that. Auburn's wide receiver looked good at 8A, and it was partially due to Peyton Thorne. Cam Coleman is going to be there. Perry Thompson is going to be is on his way. Malcolm Simmons is on his way. Bryce Kane is here. Sam Jackson's here. Robert Lewis, Jay Fair, Camden Brown, Rivaldo Fairweather, Rico Walker, Brandon Frazier. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. Micah Riley had a catch. It's time. It is time, and I've almost got Luke Deal too. It is time to start settling into the fact that Peyton Thorne is your quarterback. I know it sucks for a lot of you. I had to live with that last year. I'm a Robbie Ashford fan. I was the Robbie Ashford fan, and I was very pro getting Robbie on the field. But here's the thing. Peyton Thorne outplayed him. At the end of the year, Peyton Thorne played his best brand of football, and he is on his way to do that this year with more weapons. It is time to settle down and start getting behind Peyton Thorne. If you do not want to do that, shame on you. We'll see you whenever Auburn's good, because you clearly only support this team whenever they look good for you. So that's as far as I'm going to say about that. Coach Kazi, maybe PT will prove me wrong, but I'm just not sold. I need to see it in games for him to change my mind. That is a valid opinion. Because, Chris, this is why you're my favorites. Because you say you need to see it in games. No one else says that. They say, "Oh, we were saw it from last year." Auburn has a coach known for their quarterback development. Hugh Freeze is known for his ability to develop quarterbacks. He didn't have Peyton Thorne very long. I think Peyton made a lot of great strides at the end of last year. And of course the bowl game kind of negates all of that, but no one looked good in the bowl game. The entire bowl game looked terrible. I will say, I don't think Holden Garner, Hank Brown, or Walker White did anything to prove to Auburn fans that they should be starting over Peyton Thorne. I think that's where I'm at. I am so against getting a quarterback in the spring summer cycle of the transfer portal, because I think that does more harm than good. That's what happened with Peyton Thorne last year. That's why I believe he didn't look so ready that we saw towards the end of the year, because he needed more time to develop as an SEC quarterback and needed more time with the team. But of course, I'm not in the locker rooms. I don't really know what exactly went down, but because the 100. My next winner for the Auburn's A-Day yesterday was Auburn's pass blocking. Auburn's offensive line made a lot of good strides for preventing the pass rush. There was I want to say at least a lot of plays where the quarterbacks had 3 or more seconds to, I rearrange my words, 4+ seconds. I would say 4+. There was a lot of great strides made in the offensive line room where the pass blocking was a lot better than it was last year. Last year was abysmal, but and I also go to say Auburn's defensive line is really good. I'll get to that in a second, because the offensive line, as not only they're part of my winners, they're also part of my losers, because the run blocking was terrible. And that I'm going to combine these because it was a dichotomy, because they were stopping the pass rush, but whenever it came to the run game, I mean, look at I'm going to read out these numbers. Damari Alston had 6 carries for 21 yards. Jeremiah Cobb had 6 carries for 12 yards. Justin Jones had 5 carries for 5 yards. Christian Burnett had a carry for 3 yards. Jarquez Hunter had 4 carries with no yards. And Brian Battie had 1 carry for -1 yards. And if my math does me correct here, that is 33, 38, 41, 40. 40 rushing yards off of what looks to be around 23-ish carries. So that was not a good day running the ball. That's some of that is due to the fact that Stephen's line looked really, really good. But the offensive line was not making holes in the run game. There was no lanes being opened up. No matter what happened, the defensive line was there. The linebackers were there. Someone was there to shut down the run game. And it looked bad. That was like the worst part of the day, was watching the running backs not be able to perform. I didn't see Sean Jackson on the field. I don't know what could be up with that. I didn't hear anything. But the run game was not there. It was just completely absent from the game. And of course, it's weird to see that, especially as an Auburn fan, because you watch Auburn play and you're like, oh, well, Auburn's going to run the ball. That's like the Auburn brand. Auburn runs the ball better than the rest of the SC does. There was like a 10-season stretch where Auburn had 1,000-yard rusher every year, but the 8A game came around and Auburn only rushed for 40 yards on 20 carries. That's not good. But the passing game looked good. I would love to see how this transitions. I would personally, if Auburn tried out what Hugh Freeze has been pushing for, which like trying to play an in-state, like lower school, like trying to play like a UAB or a Troy or South Alabama for their spring game, I think that'd work out perfectly. And trying to see what this team looks like even more than what 8A does. Because you'd at least see like consistent 1s and 2s going out there and kind of see where the run game actually is. But if this is anything to tell, this summer is going to be huge on Jake Thornton and company, because the run blocking, again, just absolutely horrendous. And the running backs could make it work. I trust Jarquez is one of the best running backs in the country. Damari is one of the most underrated running backs in the country. Jeremiah Cobb is next up to be one of those really, really good Auburn running backs of all time. But the offensive line needs to make some holes. The offensive line needs to open some gaps up for the running backs to run through. But yeah. And my next winner is, of course, the guy who scored 22 of Auburn's 28 points, Towns Magoo, who 7 for 7 on the day for Towns Magoo as a true freshman, technically a walk-on. And he even talked about it after the game, where he was talking about how he came to Auburn. He was like expecting a red shirt. And of course, because Alex McPherson is Like, of course, he's not missed a field goal. He didn't miss a field goal last year. But yeah, Towns McGill looked great. 58-yard field goal. Looks like the next Auburn great kicker. And he's right behind another guy who's going to be a really great kicker for the Tigers as well. I mean, Auburn might have the best 1-2 like punch of kickers in the country. And I don't think that's like a hard like title to reach, but I don't think anybody else in the country could have this kind of confidence if their kicker were to go down. And of course, I don't want to jinx anything with Alex, of course, but Towns is legit. And if you had any doubts about Auburn's like kicking room, I mean, it's the best in the country. Towns will look great. You didn't get to see a lot of Oscar Chapman, which sucks, but yeah, he got a lot of holds in, got a lot of good holds. So yeah, that's my last winner is Towns Magoo, and of course there's probably some things I'm missing. I think the pass defense is good. I think the linebackers looked good as a unit, and of course I think Jaron Thompson got defensive player of the game, which I'm very excited to see about. I will say I'll probably go in a little. I'll do my last loser. I'll kind of do my basic thoughts of the game. My last loser of Auburn's A-Day is of course the red zone offense. Auburn scored 1 touchdown yesterday. 1. 6 points was scored by the Auburn offense, while 22 had to come from Auburn's backup redshirt kicker. It looked bad. There was a lot of drives that stalled. There was one drive that stalled within the 5-yard line, and there was a few that just stalled in the red zone in general, just within the 20. And I can't remember off the top of my head which drives they were, but the fact that there were so many drives where you have this running back room, which of course isn't going to be like the greatest running back room of all time or anything, but definitely a top-notch run group, because Damari Alston is, again, I'm not going to do this spiel again, but Jarquez Hunter, Damari, Jeremiah Cobb, Brian Battie, just the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But you get within 20 yards and you can't get a holes open in the offensive line. You can't get a touchdown. You can't get extra points or anything like that. You just got to settle for field goals. That's not what the fans want to see. That's not what the team probably wants to see either. Auburn can't go another year where the offense stalls whenever they're in plus territory or in the red zone where they should be scoring touchdowns. And of course, this is not the greatest team. This team is nothing that Auburn fans need to get like completely stoked about a potential SEC championship or anything. The 10-2s that I've been seeing all over the place are ridiculous. Do not, for the love of everything holy, if you are a betting person, do not bet Auburn to win 10 games this year. Do not do that whatsoever. If you do, seek help. There are hotlines available if you bet Auburn to get 10 wins this year. But the red zone offense was abysmal. But I think it's something that can get improved on. I think also Auburn's defense looked good. And if I had to grade it, I mean, the offense would probably get like a B-, maybe a C+ for the offense. Defense, I'd give a B+. Special teams, A+. Special teams gets an A+, because Towns Magoo is awesome. Overall thoughts, I mean, I think that Auburn made a lot of strides through the portal that are looking to work out. Jaron Thompson looked good. Eugene Asante was good. Dorian Mousy looked good. DeMarcus Riddick looked good. A lot of those offseason moves through recruiting or through the transfer portal look to have worked out, because you had a lot of guys like that. I mean, look at Robert Lewis, who had a great day for the Tigers. Sam Jackson V came in when a couple of wide receivers weren't able to play. And again, I don't want people to try to get on board with the whole get a transfer portal quarterback thing, because if you ask for a transfer portal quarterback, you're asking for the same thing that happened last year. And of course, if they're transferring out at this point of the offseason, then odds are they're not better than anybody that Auburn's willing to start. That is simple as that gets. No one that transfers out in the middle of the offseason like this is going to be better than Peyton Thorne. And I know that's hard for a lot of Auburn fans to admit, but it's the truth. If there are people transferring out mid-offseason, they're not better than Peyton Thorne. That's as simple as I can make it. And last thing I'll talk about for football, of course, there was a crystal ball for a 3-star cornerback for this upcoming class, and Dante Core out of Fort Walton Beach. He got crystal ball to Auburn. He's 5'11", 165. Watched a little bit of film on the kid. Definitely looks like a willing tackler in open space. It's kind of hard to get all of the film on him, but he did make a lot from what I have seen. He does make a lot of great tackles, and a tenacious guy just in general. And my last football news of the show before we get into baseball, softball, and gymnastics. If you were around Auburn, Alabama yesterday and you decided to go shopping in the bookstore, I'm sure you might have noticed the fact that Auburn had their jerseys on sale. And I don't mean just any old jersey. I'm going to pull one second. I bought one. I mean like the official like Under Armour like jerseys, not like the cheap ones or anything that I tend to already have owned back there. So me and Tarr talked about it during the game. And we kind of like come to this conclusion that maybe Nike could be buying out the rest of the Under Armour contract. Because I know that's like a huge thing that people are talking about is Auburn finally going to go away from Under Armour, which, I mean, we've been asking for it for years. I will say I know nothing of it, like officially. So don't expect this to be like something to write home about. But it would not be shocking to me. And I talked about this with Ike yesterday. If Nike is trying to go in on the whole Cam Coleman hype, because if there's going to be a good like NIL jersey that sells, it's going to be the Cam Coleman jersey. It's going to be the Perry Thompson jerseys. I mean, you can have a nice little you get 4 of your friends all together and get the Freeze 4, or if you want to throw in Gentry in there and get the Freeze 5, you can have all five of your friends get the jerseys. I think it's looking around the time that Auburn finally drops Under Armour, finally jumps off of a sinking ship of a terrible sports apparel just business and that everyone's hopping off of. The only school that might not is going to be Notre Dame because they love those exclusive solo deals they have, especially like NBC. It is finally seeming like it is that Auburn is like waking up to it, and I know John Cohen's been like very luminous about it, or I don't think I used the right word there, because I mean he even said like the fans are gonna be excited with what they make up next because nothing's like written out yet, nothing's official yet. Have plenty of time to talk about it. The Under Armour deal ends in 2025 regardless, so if it did take another year of Under Armour, then Auburn fans can get excited for the Nike to come in. But if Nike were to buy out the contract, big ups to that. But that's just a rumor. But I would not assume Auburn stays alongside Under Armour for very, very long. So last couple things I talk about before I get to Diamond Sports, I just want to let y'all know, thank you all for tuning in so far of the show. Don't leave just yet because we got some Diamond Sports to talk about. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Again, leave your thoughts on A-Day. I'm available to talk about anything that you saw that I missed out on from yesterday's spring game. And of course, if you were listening on the audio version of the show, don't forget to tweet at us if you want to get your opinions highlighted on the next show. And of course, if you're looking for other ways to support the show, you can also support us by liking the video, sharing it, commenting, so on and so forth. And also, other ways to support the show, we have merch available. The Feeling Loopy College Loop branded, the War Report podcast sponsored Feeling Loopy t-shirt. It's only $25 on the warreport.com. Comes in 5 different colorways. Most comfortable shirt you are ever going to wear in your entire life. 100% guaranteed. No shirt more comfortable than the Feeling Loopy t-shirt. So get yours today. Now with that, I'm going to move on to Diamond Sports. Going to start off with softball, actually, who rounded out their War Eagle Classic with a 3-1 record. Rounded out game 1 against Louisiana Tech with a 9-1 win. Where it just was all Auburn all the time. Run rule them in the 5th. You had a lot of names around there, just actually absolutely knocking the ball over the fence. Game 2, you had to come back in the bottom of the 6th to beat Georgia Tech 4-3. Softball took down Louisiana Tech again 5-0, but took 7 this time around. And then yesterday's last game was an absolute shootout where Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets won 10-9, where Auburn was constantly trying to come back in the game, but never saw the lead or tied it up whatsoever. Yesterday just kind of started off rough. Georgia Tech went up 5-0. Auburn got it back within 2. Then a couple of home runs turned it into an 8-3 game. Auburn came back and made it 8-6, and then Georgia Tech hit a nice little 2 RBI home run. It made it 10-7 or 10-6, and then Auburn scored 3 runs to make it 10-9 to round out the game. It was a solid weekend. I can't lie for Auburn softball. This was like the first time where I've had positive words to say about the Auburn softball team, and quite a few weekends. They have a midweek this week against UAB. We'll be previewing that on the Tuesday show of the College Loop, so make sure to tune into that if you want to hear us preview that. But this was a great weekend. I think nothing looked bad. Nothing looked terrible. You had a couple of you had one tough game from Annabelle Weidra, who earned the loss against Georgia Tech, but also you had 10 runs given up, and you also it just looked like in that fourth game that they didn't have an idea of what they wanted to do on the mound. It seemed that they were just throwing it down the middle and just seeing what happens. Especially, it doesn't hurt when Georgia. It also hurts whenever Georgia Tech has a lot of power hitters. Auburn very much lacking in the power hitting department, but of course, Georgia Tech did not. As they hit, I want to say they hit a lot of home runs. I don't remember exactly how many they had. They had 4 home runs against Auburn, and 3 of those coming from one player. But Auburn finishes out 3-1 of the weekend. Got UAB up next, and of course, this weekend they're going to travel to Baton Rouge to play LSU. So hopefully, maybe trying to find a stride somewhere. Georgia Tech and Louisiana Tech, not bad teams in the slightest. So hopefully, finding some momentum going forward from the Auburn Tigers. A team that does not seem to be having much momentum going their way is, of course, the Auburn baseball team, who on Friday took down number 4 Tennessee 9-5 in front of the largest audience in Plainsboro Park history. And then Saturday and Sunday meaning the day, not so much. Lost to Tennessee 12-2, and then today lost to Tennessee 19-5. And I'm gonna kind of base what I'm gonna say next off of what I've just been hearing from everybody I talked to about it and what I see on Twitter. This Auburn pitching rotation and just room in general is just very lackluster. It's just not the best right now. It just looks bad on paper. It looks bad on the box score. It looks bad in general. Auburn has the batters to be able to stay in games. And of course, them beating Tennessee at home was a huge win. But I don't know how likely it is this team is going to be winning a lot of. And of course, Kentucky up next, I think is going to be on their side a lot for that series. Of course, that being in Plainsboro Park again. But just to watch this team just get dismantled by Tennessee just kind of paints a very dim, dark picture of what this team looks like this year. Because this is a talented team, and it looks like kind of like they just don't know how to mesh together yet. Then it kind of hurts that the mound is giving up 12 and 19 runs in those games. And of course, those games didn't even go to 9. Those were both run ruled in the 7th. I want to be like the optimistic one. I'm not. I'm just not. Auburn. Connor McBride had a bad game on Saturday. Will Cannon had a terrible game. Parker Carlson had a bad game. It's just bad games after bad games after bad games from the mound for the Tigers. And I can't say that the past 2 days that the batting has been the best. It's an issue. It is a huge issue. Hopefully it gets addressed sooner rather than later. I don't want to chip off this season and just say it's not all for naught or anything. But definitely something needs to be changed on the mound. Try out different players, see who works the best. The guys who started off the year didn't work out. Connor McBride's kind of fallen off a lot. Joe Go's kind of fallen off a little bit. It certainly just got to be worked out. It just need to tweak it a little bit, but I don't want to say it's as dim as it looks, but it might be. I do not think that Auburn should look at another baseball coach. Do not take it as that. I think that'd be stupid to do so. I just think you guys start looking at the pitching rotation and start to feel a little bit of worry about the rest of the season. And then the last thing to talk about for this episode, the 2024 NCAA Regional Championships for gymnastics rounded out Auburn's season as they finished third in the regionals by a factor of 0.8, falling behind Stanford and Cal. And going back and looking at it, Auburn started off good. They started off in the lead, really. You had to finish in the top two to move on to the next round. Auburn had a great start to the floor, 49.5, which is our second highest total of the team that season. They had 5 scores of 9-9 or better for the floor, and then in walked the vault, which did not bode well, 48.975, and then round that had bars, which had the same score there. Then finished strong. Had a great ending on the beam, 49.3. But when you score that low on vault and bars back to back, it's kind of hard to come back from that. So the season's over for Auburn Gymnastics. It was a very solid season. SEC was also very solid too, so you can't look at the SEC record and don't look down at Auburn Gymnastics for how the season went. I think this is a great building spot for what next year can be. You're bringing in a lot of talent, a lot of potentially Olympic level talent, but a tough end of the season. Luckily, it ended in regionals. I got worried early on that it might not be, but they just held out and were strong throughout the entire season. Definitely proved me wrong for what I thought they were going to be able to do earlier on. But if no one has anything else for me to say, I'll go ahead and round out the show. But of course, I'm Dylan Larck, @Boateng on Twitter. Visual aid right there for both my Twitter, which if I can point better, my Twitter, and then my name right here. That is my Instagram handle. So if you want to follow my Instagram, you can find me right there as well. And of course, if you want to see me right here on the College Loop podcast, right here on YouTube, where you like, comment, and subscribe. Again, leave your thoughts on A-Day. Who's the biggest winner? Who's the biggest loser, in your opinion, for Auburn A-Day? And of course, follow us on social media, literally everywhere: Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. All those at the College Loop. And of course, go check us out everywhere else. I'm also on TikTok and at the Boateng as well. If you want to follow me on there, I have content planned out for it. Just don't have the time to record it right now, so I'm trying to find that and do that. But of course, tune into the Tuesday show where we're going to talk more about Auburn A-Day, where Harrison Tarr will be on he lost his voice at A-Day and baseball and at a concert, I believe, too. So he's on vocal rest, so he'll be back on Tuesday to help out with the preview for Auburn baseball and, of course, Auburn softball this week. So with all that being said, thanks for tuning in. War Eagle, and this, of course, has been the College Loop Podcast. Thanks for watching.